Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for August 23rd of 2023, and currently we have two slight risks, one for the northern central plains for North Dakota into parts of northwestern Minnesota here, as well as a slight risk for the Ohio Valley into parts of western Pennsylvania, northern West Virginia, and the majority of eastern Ohio, as well as parts of the Detroit region for Michigan here. I originally wasn't going to cover this slight risk region towards the beginning of today until it was upgraded to a slight risk with a 2% tornado threat region, so I will be covering this in today's forecast. As for our threats for today, we do have two areas of a 2% tornado threat, one for the slight risk region for parts of Michigan, Ohio, and parts of Pennsylvania, as well as another 2% for the slight risk region for northern North Dakota there. As for wind, we do have a 15% for the slight risk region for the Ohio region, as well as for the slight risk region for northern North Dakota. You can see that we do have a 5% wind threat for that region there. As for hail, we do have two areas of 15% for small to medium hail for northern North Dakota and the Ohio region. Taking a look at our 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook before I go into our radar omega models, you can see that we do have these two areas of disturbance. One does have a 70% chance over the next 7 days, and another does have a 30% chance over the next 7 days. These are likely not going to really pose all that much of a threat to the United States at all, really. They are likely going to mostly veer off to the north and not really come anywhere close to the United States and mostly stay in the Central Pacific. However, Tropical Storm Franklin here is on track to become a Category 2 hurricane sometime in the next 7 days. I'm not really sure when. I think it's around Sunday or Saturday, but please correct me on that if I am wrong. I'm not really sure on that time frame, but overall, it still, as it stands, does not seem like it is going to pose all that much of a threat to the United States, as it is mostly going to be tracking off to the north here. If we take a look at our radar omega model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, focusing on the slight risk region for the Ohio region, you can see that we do have some fairly strong mid-level flow that is expected to move through this region that is rounding the northeastern side of this high pressure system, dominating the Central Plains and the Midwest. It is going to be, again, rounding the northeastern side to trigger severe weather development across the Ohio region. This is what triggered severe weather development across Michigan the day prior. It has moved further south and it is expected to continue progressing south to trigger severe weather development into West Virginia and maybe even parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, North Carolina by the next 3 days. So overall, this area is expected to see some severe weather over the next 3 to 4 days associated with these storms that are expected to develop in the Ohio region that are, again, expected to continue progressing south. However, for today, you can see fairly strong mid-level flow would definitely support the possibility of some elongated photographs and allow for some small to medium hail across this region, and that does stand for the slight risk region across the across the northern North Dakota region. You can see a little bit of the veering of the winds here as I did show the time frame here with the animation. You can see that there is a little bit of those veering of the winds, more so kind of like this. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can see that there are definitely some veering of the winds that would definitely support some directional shear and that 2% tornado threat region for northern North Dakota. And then as far as directional shear goes for the slight risk region and the 2% region for the Ohio region, you can see that we do have some overall weak veering of the winds, but it should definitely be supportive of some directional shear to support that 2% tornado threat for this slight risk region. If we take a look at our dew points here, focusing on the slight risk region for the Ohio region for now, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong dew points across this region. We are expected to see dew points that are going to get up to what looks like the mid and even upper 70s. That is going to support the possibility of extreme amounts of instability, and why we have extremely strong dew points like this is because of the intense heat we are getting with this high pressure system across the Midwest. It is expected to raise Cape values to insane levels. In fact, I think we are expected to see Cape values that reach the mid 5,000s widespread across a large portion of the Midwest because of this high pressure system that is across the region. So we are expected to have some extreme amounts of instability for the slight risk region across the Ohio region. And then for the slight risk region across northern North Dakota, you can see that we are expected to have overall weaker dew points across the region, with dew points more so back towards the low 70s. However, this should be able to support the possibility of some strong instability as well, possibly getting up to those 3,000 levels, is what would be expected with dew points this high. If we take a look at our temperature for the United States region, mainly focusing on the Midwest for now, you can see that we have extreme amounts of heat across this region. We are expected to see temperatures that do rise above 1,000 for a large portion of the Central Plains and Midwest. This is expected to continue over the next couple of days and only get worse from here. We are expected to see temperatures that are going to rise across the Midwest and Central Plains up to the mid 110s, getting close to 110s on some days, but mainly ranging from 100 to 107 to 109. But over across Iowa, you can see that temperatures do reach very close to 110. So we are expected to have intense amount of heat across the Midwest and Central Plains associated with this high pressure system, and this will also contribute to the possibility of intense amount of instability across this particular location. So if you do live in any of these areas, make sure you are staying hydrated. If you are doing anything outside, it is very important that you're staying hydrated in temperatures like this, as well as make sure that you are looking out for any heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke. And then if we take a look at the two slight risk regions, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong heat for that particular location. We are expected to have some temperatures that are going to reach up to the 80s and the 90s. And as for the slight risk region for northern North Dakota, mostly back towards the 80s, this is going to support the possibility of some fairly strong instability across this region, possibly getting into the extreme values, more so back towards the 3,000s range for northern North Dakota, and probably getting into those extreme levels with intense dew points and intense heat as well. So we could definitely see in extreme amounts of instability, not only for the slight risk region, but for this for the Midwest and Central Plains as a whole. Taking a look at our instability, focusing on the slight risk region for the Ohio region. But if we go a little bit to the west here, you can see, as I was mentioning, those Cape values that are expected to be in the widespread 5,000s and getting into the mid 5,000s as well, widespread. You can see a very, very intense instability plume across this region associated with intense heat and dew points across this region. Again, is expected to bring instability values up to insane levels. But for the slight risk region for the Ohio region, you can see that we are expected to have extreme amounts of instability still. Cape values are going to range from further down south into the 1,000s range to Cape values that are expected to get into the low 5,000s range across parts of northern Ohio and the Detroit region for Michigan. So we are definitely going to see instability that would be able to support small to medium hail with that 15% hail threat, as well as the possibility of damaging winds and the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes depending on directional shear, which I don't think is going to be too strong because the mid-level flow was fairly zonal. And when we do take a look at our energy helicity index readings, I do think a lot of these energy helicity index readings that you're about to see are going to be heavily contaminated by instability. And then if we take a look at the slight risk region for northern North Dakota, you can see that we are expected to have some fairly strong instability values there as well. We are expected to see Cape values that are going to be in the upper 2,000s range, and I think they were supposed to get into the 3,000s range across part of the marginal threat to the west. This is definitely going to be able to support the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes across this region, as well as the possibility of damaging winds and the possibility of small to medium hail with that 15% hail threat for this particular location. Taking a look at our energy helicity index readings for the 2% tornado threat region for the Ohio region into Detroit, you can see that we are expected to have extreme energy helicity index readings that would be indicative of a significant tornado threat. However, because of the amount of instability that we have in the extreme amounts of instability, we are not expected to have energy helicity index readings this high realistically. A lot of the a lot of what you are seeing right now is going to be heavily exaggerated by extreme amounts of instability. However, as I mentioned earlier, our 500 millibars, our mid-level flow across this region was fairly zonal, so we aren't really expected to have all that strong directional shear across this region. However, with intense amounts of instability and the possibility of a little bit of directional shear, we could definitely see the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes across this 2% tornado threat region. And if we take a look at the 2% tornado threat region for northern North Dakota, you can see that we are expected to have overall fairly much weaker in energy helicity index readings that would be more realistic with instability and directional shear. This would definitely be much more realistic for this particular location, and this would definitely be indicative of that 2% tornado threat region and support the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes across this region. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator, and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas that I covered for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.